Hello, this is Cho of the Shiny Colors Discord, and welcome to another episode of the Shiny Review. Today we've got 3 cards that we need to talk about today. A new Produce SSR for Chiyoko, Support SSR for Toru, and Support SSR for Rinzai. Keep in mind that Chiyoko and Toru are limited, so you're going to have to pull now, or wait till the near future, hopefully, for these cards to make a return. As long as the returning banners happen a little more often. Starting things off, we have Chiyoko. Chiyoko 5 is really kind of a weird card, all things considered. We should have seen it coming after the latest jury support, but Chiyoko is a pure vocal unit whose primary goal is to establish a balance of interest up and interest down, while also dealing a considerable amount of vocal damage. She has nothing to do with Hokago's recent interest ignore playstyle, as 50% interest down negates 100% interest up within the same appeal, for the first 3 turns at least for Chiyoko. Truth be told, I really don't understand the point of Chiyoko's appeals at all. She doesn't really benefit Hokago early on, and otherwise exists purely to promote vocal Hokago with her insane passives and really good memory appeal. I have zero idea what direction they want to take Hokago at this point, and I'm not sure if Chiyoko is a good or bad path. Time will tell, of course, so let's hope it's positive for our Choco Idol. Her roles are Buffer, Debuffer, Attacker, and Center, and I moderately recommend pulling for Chiyoko. If you're a big fan of vocal Hokago, I highly recommend it, but otherwise, she's an interesting card for Hokago, but maybe not the most essential right now. Chiyoko's initial skill is a vocal 3.5 appeal that reduces the judge's interest by 50% for 3 turns and raises their interest by 100% for 5 turns. This links into a vocal 3.0 appeal. At max, she unlocks a vocal 5.0 appeal that reduces the judge's interest by 50% for 3 turns and increases their interest by 100% for 5 turns, and links into the same vocal 3.0 appeal. Chiyoko's 1-star passive is a vocal 50% up that requires Chiyoko on your team. This has a 30% chance to activate once. Her 2-star passive is a vocal 70% up and attention 50% up that requires the turn count to be 4 or earlier. This has a 30% chance to activate 3 times, and she also unlocks an additional plus 50 vocal uncap at 2 stars. At 3 stars, she gains 2 uncaps, a plus 150 to vocal, and another plus 50 to vocal. And lastly, she has a 4-star passive, a vocal 100% up and attention 100% up, that requires the turn count to be 3 or later. This has a 30% chance to activate 3 times. Chiyoko's memory appeal, when maxed out, is a vocal 2.0 that is linked into a vocal 4.0 that scales based on how high your attention is. For the support recommendations, vocal Hokago have a solid assortment of supports, so finding a combination of cards will yield powerful results. The latest Jury has immediate synergy, while the past limited Kogane will have a 2-star passive you don't want to miss out on. For the alternatives, vocal supports like Initial Jury still have value for a card like Chiyoko. Amana and Fuyuko assist in building up your stats, and Mono and Meguru are still reasonable selections if you just want some smaller vocal passives. For the team recommendations, vocal Hokago is probably the best bet with Chiyoko 5, since her memory appeal really helps bring it back up to speed with more modern teams. Your choice of Kaho can vary depending on the number of dupes, and the same goes for Jury. Buff up with Rinzai, then deliver swift justice. Rainbow Hokago gets an honorable mention, but I don't feel that Chiyoko 5 fits the team too well currently. She doesn't especially synergize well with Jury 5 and Natsuha 5, as their appeals ignore interest entirely, removing Chiyoko's gimmick from the equation. Chiyoko also gets bonus points for more than likely being a useful option for Knock Chill if you can find ways to boost your memory gauge. Chiyoko earns an A to a double S as a center. A vocal 6.0 memory appeal is no joke, so I'd keep a close eye on Chiyoko if you happen to run into her in Grade Fest. That being said, since most of the power weighs heavily on the link appeal portion, you might find it a little lackluster if you can't reliably reach turn 5. Consider adding some stall abilities to ensure you can make it that far. As a unit, she earns anywhere from a B+ to a double S. The rating of this unit depends a ton on how many copies of Chiyoko you have. As she gains access to more of her passive, she becomes a true powerhouse for vocal teams that need that extra kick, especially once Chiyoko gains her final passive at 4 stars, where she's truly a force to be reckoned with. Vocal Hokago want her for sure, and you might even find use for her in teams like Vocal Knock Chill. Next we have our support SSR for Toru. After being deprived of Toru content for a whole month, she's received a new support SSR, this time being limited. She has all the makings of a very solid visual support, and clearly defines what visual Nocchill is going to depend on in the future. Her passives even help out Hokago to some extent. She's also a first major support to see a giant spike in power 4 stars, so get your Hazukis ready. Her support skills are Idol's Bond, Promised Recovery, Rest Boost, and Stamina Support, and her 2 unique support skills are Visual Mastery Visual reaching plus 16 at level 70, and Unit Mastery SP reaching plus 6 at level 80. Do note that her Rest Boost, Unit Mastery SP, and Stamina Support all cap out at level 80, which is the first we've seen 4 abilities level up at level 80. Very, very powerful once you get her completely maxed out. Toru does have a scaling support appeal starting at a Visual 3.0, working its way all the way up to a Visual 3.5 at level 80. Her TFD idea is appeal, and her insight token for grad is visual. Toru's 1-star passive is a visual 50% up that requires the turn count to be 4 or later. This has a 10% chance to activate 3 times. Her 2-star passive is a visual 75% up that raises your attention by 50% as well. Requires the turn count to be 3 or later, and it has a 15% chance to activate 3 times. Her 3-star uncap is a visual plus 100, and her 4-star appeal is a visual 3.5 that grants you a special buff. Every time you successfully dodge an attack, you receive a 50% visual buff for 3 turns, and you can gain up to 3 stacks of this per dodge, up to 150% visual. Now keep in mind that you do not have evasion innately with this Toru, so you're going to have to use cards that give you evasion in order to make the most of this appeal. But I think it's still very good. Toru's event passive is an evasion 20% up that requires Toru on your team, and it has a 20% chance to activate twice. Toru gets a very easy S+. Once Visual Nocchill is fully established in their produced cards, the value of Toru goes up tremendously. She's an excellent support for visual teams, having an incredibly powerful 4-star appeal, along with very useful passives across the board. Her particular combination of TFD and grad options will make Toru highly coveted for teams that absolutely need a killer visual support. I highly recommend pulling for this card if you are a Visual Nocchill fan and are looking forward to that in the future, or just need a big boost for your visual teams. Lastly, we have our event card, Rinzai. Our latest Rinzai support has actually turned out to be a welcome addition to the Hokago lineup. Having plus 8 unit mastery as an event unit is very much appreciated, and her decent chunk of stamina support along with her fairly decent passives means that Vocal Hokago has another good option going for them. She's definitely not a game-changing card on her own, but don't let her event status deter you from using her on teams. Her support skills are Idol's Bond, Promise Recovery, Rest Boost, and Stamina Support, and her unique support skill is Unit Mastery Vocal reaching plus 8 at level 75. Her support appeal scales starting at a Vocal 2.5, working its way up to a Vocal 3.0 at level 80. Her TFD idea is Vocal, and her insight token for grad is Dance. Rinzai's 1-star passive is a Vocal 18% up that requires you to have an active Vocal buff. This has a 30% chance to activate once. Her 2-star passive is a Vocal 35% up that requires the turn count to be 4 or earlier. This has a 30% chance to activate once. Her 3-star uncap is a plus 50 to Vocal, and her 4-star appeal is a Vocal 2.8 that follows up with a 30% Vocal buff for 3 turns. Her event passive is a Vocal 20% up that requires Rinzai on your team, and it has a 40% chance to activate twice. Rinzai earns an A. I guess they figure that 2.8 is a good place to have event SSRs hang out now, instead of 2.5 like the older cards. New Rinzai is actually pretty legit, and can replace Window Rinzai for Vocal Hokago teams outside of Wing. While the passives aren't super incredible, you can definitely make do. I recommend farming for this Rinzai while you can. And that's going to do it for the video today. Thank you so much as always for watching. If you like what you saw, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I know who's watching that haven't been subscribed, and I'd appreciate it if you click that button. Next time we'll talk about whatever banner comes next, so let's look forward to it together. I've been Cho, thanks for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day.